I live in Kingwood Township, a beautiful rural community that lies in the path of the PennEast Pipeline. I am opposed to the project for many reasons, but this video is not about PennEast. It is about our township's natural resources and how they would be affected if the pipeline went through. So what is PennEast proposing to do? They want to install a 36-inch diameter below-ground pipeline to transmit natural gas under high pressure from Luzerne County, Pennsylvania to Mercer County, New Jersey. This map shows the path that the pipeline would take across Kingwood. It would enter from the northwest corner of the township and run southeast for about 7 miles, crossing 10 streams and 19 wetlands. In order to install the pipe, PennEast would need to clear a surface area approximately 100 feet wide and dig an 8-foot trench. The plan calls for a 3-foot diameter pipe with the top of the pipe 3 feet below the surface and a 1-foot bed of gravel beneath the pipe. That is a total of 7 feet, and presumably the additional foot provides some workspace during the installation process. After the installation was completed, a 50-foot right-of-way would be maintained in perpetuity. This is a common practice for both gas and electrical utilities, and other such right-of-ways can be seen at various locations around the township. The Township's Environmental Commission has identified a number of serious long-term consequences for Kingwood if this project were to take place. I am going to give you a quick overview of 5 areas of concern: groundwater and geology, surface water, wetlands, forest and open space, and wildlife. Let's begin with groundwater and geology, because this is an issue with potential to directly affect Kingwood Township residents. Every home and business in Kingwood relies on well water. So where does this water come from? In many soil types, water is stored in spaces between the soil or rock particles, or within porous rock particles. This is known as primary porosity. In the soil underlying Kingwood, water is stored in fractures in the bedrock. This is known as secondary porosity. Water supplies that rely on bedrock fractures are more fragile because they can store less water, and the water may move more quickly over greater distances. Studies in Kingwood Township have documented that pumping for normal usage in one well can drop the water levels in other wells nearby, in some cases more than 3/4 of a mile away. In a system that relies on secondary porosity, faster movement with less natural filtration also makes the supply more susceptible to contamination. When I refer to bedrock, I am talking about the solid, unbroken rock beneath the other soil layers. This shows a bedrock outcrop along a stream near the Delaware River. Although the bedrock has levels and cracks, it is a solid layer of rock. You cannot dig a hole in that. Note how sparse the soil layer is above the bedrock. Throughout Kingwood, the bedrock is very close to the surface. This map shows the depth to bedrock at various locations around the township. In the red areas, bedrock is 20 inches or less from the surface. In the gold areas, bedrock is 20 to 40 inches from the surface. And in the pink areas, bedrock is 40 to 60 inches below the surface. As we just saw, the gravel layer upon which the pipe rests would begin 84 inches below the surface, and the installation process calls for a 96-inch trench. That means that placing the pipe at the required depth would entail either blasting or drilling of bedrock for the entire 7 miles of its passage through Kingwood. If directional drilling was used as a way to get through the bedrock, there are a couple of concerns specific to that methodology. The process itself uses vast amounts of water because the rock drill is lubricated with a slurry made from water and soil. That could stress the supply in nearby wells. A soil slurry created as a lubricant could introduce contaminants from the soil into the water supply. Either blasting or drilling of the bedrock is likely to create new fracture patterns, changing the way water moves beneath the surface. This could permanently affect the availability of water in existing wells. Opening of new fractures could also introduce contamination from new sources, both by creating pathways to existing contaminants such as septic waste and by releasing arsenic that is normally trapped in the rock layer. Let's move on to surface water. Surface water is just what it sounds like: rivers, lakes, streams, and so forth. Everyone probably understands intuitively why clean water is important, both for the health of ourselves and our environment and for aesthetic reasons. In Kingwood, our concerns focus mainly on the streams, but as all of our streams drain into the Delaware, any effects can be expected to impact the river as well. New Jersey has established a classification system in order to monitor and protect surface water quality. Waters with exceptional significance as ecological, recreational, water supply, or fisheries resources are designated as C1. All other waters are C2. In Kingwood, 3 of our streams have a C1 designation. The proposed route of the PennEast Pipeline crosses those 3 streams a total of 8 times. One key tool used for protecting stream quality is the establishment of a buffer zone, which is a swath of undisturbed vegetation along each bank. C1 streams require a 300-foot buffer, and C2 streams a 50-foot buffer. A buffer zone protects water quality in several ways. The vegetation along the stream banks slows the rate at which rainwater runs off of the surface and enters the stream, helping to prevent erosion and flash flooding. Some of the nutrients and pollutants from nearby yards, roads, and farm fields are taken up by the plants as the water passes through the buffer zone, helping to maintain water purity. And the presence of mature trees along the banks shades the water, helping to maintain stable temperatures. Stream temperature is important because warmer water evaporates faster, holds less dissolved oxygen, and allows pollutants to combine and form toxic compounds. When oxygen levels get too low, fish become stressed and the invertebrates that they eat begin to die off. How could the pipeline compromise the quality of our streams? During the construction process, disturbance of the stream bed and banks will introduce sediment and contaminants into the water. Water temperatures can increase in areas where the tree canopy is removed at stream crossings. Compromised buffers mean stream levels can rise faster following a rain event. Fill around the pipe in areas that were once solid rock can change water levels and flow patterns. The quality of both our groundwater and surface water is closely tied to our wetlands. Wetlands are areas where the ground is wet for most of the year, such as swamps, bogs, and marshes. The pictures illustrate some different wetland types from around New Jersey. In Kingwood, the majority of our wetlands are forested swamps. At one time, wetlands were considered useless land and were routinely drained for development or agriculture. Today, we have a better understanding of the critical functions that they provide for the health of our environment. Wetlands store water and slowly release it. The slowing of the water's movement reduces erosion and flooding and allows for groundwater recharge. As the water seeps slowly through a wetland, plants and microorganisms in the soil absorb some of the nutrients that would otherwise enter the groundwater and streams. Wetlands are also some of the most biologically productive ecosystems, providing diverse habitats for fish and wildlife. The dark pink areas on this map of Kingwood are all wetlands. The lighter pink lines surrounding them indicate the associated buffer zones. Buffer zones protect wetlands in much the same ways that they work for other surface waters. Typical wetlands require a 50-foot buffer around the entire perimeter. Wetlands that discharge into trout production waters or provide habitat for a threatened or endangered species are classified as exceptional and require a 150-foot buffer. Approximately half of the pipeline's route across Kingwood crosses wetlands or wetland buffers. 15 of the 19 wetlands that would be impacted are categorized as exceptional. How could our wetlands be changed if the pipeline went through? Removal of soil and vegetation during the construction process can temporarily impair or inhibit all wetland functions. The gravel layer and fill beneath the pipe can act as a conduit for water, permanently changing the water levels and flow patterns in the wetlands and disrupting their critical functions. Because our water supplies occur in bedrock fractures, the role that our wetlands play in groundwater recharge and filtration are particularly critical to Kingwood residents. Many of the forest and open space concerns relate to the permanent right-of-way. It is interesting to note that our town was named for its beautiful forests. The other assorted facts are just included to remind us of the many ways that trees help to keep our air and water clean and reduce our energy needs. A typical patch of forest is partitioned into an inner and outer habitat type. This is known as the edge effect. Some species prefer the forest interior, while others thrive in the edge habitat. In this example, about 3/4 of the forest is interior habitat, and the remaining quarter is edge habitat. If one road or right-of-way cuts through the forest, it may only occupy a tiny percentage of the land, but it creates a disproportionate shift between the interior and edge habitats. The effect is magnified as multiple cuts are made. For example, if a road, a power line, and a gas line all pass through different parts of the forest patch. The numbers here are not absolute. They would vary in each case depending on the size of the plot and the width of the various cuts. The important thing to note is that as forests become fragmented, edge habitat and species increase, and interior habitat and species decrease. Edges and other disturbed areas often become an entrance point for invasive species. An invasive species is a non-native plant, animal, or disease that is likely to throw an ecosystem out of balance, generally to the detriment of native species. In the absence of natural predators or pests, a non-native species may rapidly invade a new habitat. Here is an example of an invasive plant that recently appeared in our area. It is known as mile a minute because it grows so rapidly that it can quickly form a blanket over the ground and shrubs, even climbing up into the trees. It dominates the space where it establishes, overcoming the native plants. Our native animals don't eat it, so there's nothing to keep it in check. Invasive species harm an environment by competing with native species for space and resources while contributing little or nothing to benefit the ecosystem. Changes to our forest and open space that could result from the pipeline project include the permanent loss of mature trees, a shift in the balance between forest interior and edge habitat, and the potential for invasive plant species to use disturbed corridors as an entry point. Lastly, a few words about wildlife. In Kingwood, we are very fortunate to enjoy lots of open space with diverse habitats that include forests, wetlands, and grasslands. Because of this, our township is an important breeding area and stopover site for a variety of migratory songbirds. Kingwood also provides habitat for a number of rare species, including endangered, threatened, or special concern animals and plants. Here are a few endangered species that can be found in Kingwood. An endangered species is one whose prospects for survival within the state are poor. Both the bald eagle and the red-shouldered hawk are classified as endangered during the breeding season, with a status of lesser concern during the non-breeding season. They are included on this page because both raptors are present during the breeding season. The Missouri gooseberry is a state endangered plant that is an important food source for a butterfly known as the gray comma. Although the gray comma is not presently classified as a rare species, it is uncommon enough that butterfly enthusiasts from around the state come to Kingwood in hopes of seeing it. Threatened species are already in trouble, but not in immediate danger of extirpation. Here are a number of threatened species that reside in Kingwood. The bobolink and grasshopper sparrow, both of which breed within the township, are listed as threatened during the breeding season and special concern during the rest of the year. This is a sample of some special concern species that occur in Kingwood. These may seem more familiar, as they are not really in trouble yet but are considered to be on the edge due to declining numbers. The northern harrier is endangered as a breeding bird and special concern during the non-breeding season. The species may be seen in Kingwood during the winter months. The wood thrush is listed as special concern only during the breeding season, but it is well documented within the township during that period. Some concerns for our wildlife if the pipeline goes through. Construction activities may destroy native plants and disrupt the life cycles of animals by interrupting hibernation or causing the loss of a breeding year. Permanent changes to surface waters, wetlands, woodlands, and other open spaces can make those habitats unsuitable for certain plant and animal species. In summary, here are the top environmental concerns for Kingwood Township if the PennEast Pipeline project is approved. Relative to groundwater and geology, our top concern is the loss or contamination of well water. For our streams and other surface waters, concerns include changes in water levels, temperature, and clarity. Changes to our wetlands may cause reductions in water storage, filtration, and wildlife habitat. Impacts to our forests and open space would include a loss of trees, a shift in habitat types, and an opening for invasive species. And wildlife may experience some direct impacts, but the greatest threat is the loss of critical habitat due to permanent changes in our surface water, wetlands, forests, and open space. More comprehensive information is available on the Kingwood Township website, along with additional references. Just go to www.kingwoodtownship.com, click on the link to the pipeline page, and look under information.